On today's show, what should the Dallas Mavericks do in the draft if their pick lands at 10? What should they do if they know that Kyrie is not returning? We'll talk about that and answer your questions on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
Mavericks, NBA champions. It's good, and the Mavericks have won the game.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Loyalty never fades away.
And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager for the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for being part of the show. Make it Locked On Mavs your first listen each and every day. Subscribe or follow for free wherever you get your podcasts. Listen every day. Helps grow the show. We really appreciate you guys listening on the podcast. I put up better audio there on the podcast. So if audio is your thing, listen there. And let us know in the YouTube comments. What do you want the Mavericks to do in the draft? Let's say they get the 10th pick. What do you want them to do with that pick? We'll talk about all that today. If you want to support the show, text us, get text alerts from us on Mavs rumors and stuff throughout the offseason, and participate in our mailbags like today. Subscribe to our subtext. There's the link in the description below, or you can text the number on the screen, the number in the description as well. So be part of that. Help support the show. Appreciate all of you that have done it. Bunch of people, like more than I expected at this point, are part of the subtext, and I'm ready for that to grow more so we can keep bringing this show to you. Joining me, as always, my co-host, writer, and contributor at Mavs.com, the draft dude, the one more thinking. What you got for me, Isaac Harris?
Well, I thought we could just start off talking about Guardians of the Galaxy.
La 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 la. Hookah chaka, hookah.
Listen, I just got back from Guardians, and Nick said,
I don't want to know.
No, Nick said, I don't even want to know if you liked it or not. Like, Nick doesn't even know.
I took my headphones off.
And typically, a movie that he likes, I don't like, and vice versa. But
was it Shang-Chi, the one that we really disagreed on? Or what was the one we really disagreed on recently? I love that movie. That's like my favorite one.
I think it was Multiverse of Madness.
The Spider-Man one, or the
Doctor Strange one.
The Doctor Strange one. Now, I liked it, and you hated it.
Oh, Ant-Man was horrible.
I thought it was good. I thought it was good. It's like a 7.5 out of 10.
So this latest Guardians.
I don't want to know. Don't tell me. Seeing it this weekend. And we're not in the business of spoiling media content anymore.
I'm not. You are.
Today, we're going to answer your questions, and I asked for some questions on the draft. I got a couple of questions on just overall offseason stuff, so maybe we'll get into those a little bit later. But I wanted to talk about the draft because the lottery is coming up soon, and we want to get into your questions. So we're going to talk about and answer a whole bunch of your questions today, including this first one that really has me, I really just thought that this was an interesting question. What is the Mavericks approach, or what is your approach to the draft if you know 100% that Kyrie Irving isn't coming back? And I think that at this point, we have talked about Kyrie a couple times this week specifically. There's been reports both from Mark Stein from The Athletic, a couple places, that the Lakers are not interested in Kyrie anymore. There was the, Gambo from Phoenix, the Phoenix radio guy that's plugged in over there, said that there could be, if Phoenix gets ousted in the second round, there could still be like an Ayton for Kyrie trade talk. So maybe they're still interested, or maybe they still have some interest depending on how it goes to them. But it doesn't seem like there's a lot of other suitors for Kyrie. So we're pretty sure Kyrie's coming back, but I'm not going to FanDuel and putting any money down on Kyrie returning, because I don't want to bet on anything Kyrie. But if he's not coming back, that's just such a different approach. And especially to the draft. And so I was really curious what your thoughts are on what should the Mavericks approach be if you know he's not coming back.
I don't think it should be any different.
Really?
I actually don't. I think the only way it would be different is it just opens up a little bit more of like who you would potentially target, like on the trade market. For instance, like a Damian Lillard or something like that. Like, you're not really interested in Damian Lillard if a Kyrie Irving, is right, coming back to your team. So if Kyrie's not coming back, and then, let's say Portland is taking calls or something for Dame, like, you would be more interested at that point. But besides that, like, I don't think nothing changes, because you still want to improve the team. It's not like, hey, Kyrie's not coming back, so let's just go ahead and take a young player because that means we're rebuilding. You ain't rebuilding. Like, you still got to win now.
Right.
So, like, whether Kyrie's coming back or not, you're still entertaining offers for the deal. I mean, for the pick, you're still trying to get another like locked in rotation player, whether it's a big or wing or whoever. So I don't think much changes.
And this is maybe just telling of where the Mavericks are in their roster. But like, I started going through and I said, okay, well, my first thought is if they know that Kyrie's not coming back, which this is completely hypothetical. Just want to throw that out there. We mentioned at the top that it seems like everybody's confident he's coming back, but just if he does, if they know he's not, what would they do? Well, I think first you start with, all right, we got to find a sign and trade, because first of all, nobody that really is going to want him to contend and win right now is going to have cap space. So you have to find a sign and trade immediately. So you start looking through your options. You're like, all right, DeAndre Ayton, maybe Karl Anthony Towns with the Timberwolves. Like, maybe I'm more interested in that if Kyrie's not on the team anymore. The Pelicans, maybe they want to shake some things up, and it's CJ McCollum and something else, and they decide to do that. Chicago, maybe with like a DeRozan or a Levine, they decide to break that group up. They were really disappointed with what they did this past season. So like, you start looking down that route. But even if you go down that route, if you're looking at the draft, which we want to today, it doesn't change any players that you take, like any of these guys that we're looking at 10 or even like, 1, 2, 3, 4, like, because of where the Mavs roster is right now, they need multiples of each thing. Right? There's not one position that they could get in the draft that you're like, oh, they have too many of those now. I don't think at this point, right? Like, the Scoot Henderson one is interesting. If they land at 2, you have Kyrie back. But if you don't, then you just take him, right? You just take him and and see if he's good from day one and hope that he is. But like, you need too much stuff, and you could get multiples of each position and get it in the draft, and you'd be fine.
Yeah, and you want to win now. Like, it's not like, hey, we know Kyrie's not coming back, so yeah, we're taking Case and Wallace at 10.
Yeah, right.
It's like,
right.
well, you could still take him. Like, you're still not going to take Case and Wallace to be your starting point guard alongside Luka Doncic. That you're just not going to sell Luka on that. So that's why I don't think much changes if or I don't think there's something that they're going to do on draft night. Let me say it this way. I don't think if they select a player on draft night, I don't think there's much they're going to do on draft night with that pick that would tell you, ooh, I don't think Kyrie's coming back now, unless they went and got like a Damian Lillard or something.
And that's the real answer to this question is it even if like there would be no indicator to us like, oh, they know Kyrie's not coming back because they did this. Maybe if they trade him, like maybe if they, but that won't happen. Another question from Hunter. He says, if the Mavericks get the 10th pick, most realistic scenario, and they stand pat, he capitalized pat. Well, I don't know if he's talking about my Locked On NBA co-host. They take a center and a wing. Does that tell you anything about Luka's patience, or that they just couldn't find a deal? So basically he's asking, if they get 10 and they don't trade the pick, does that indicate anything to us about Luka, his patience with the team, his frustration, anything like that?
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
No. I think the only thing it tells me is they just really didn't have a lot of options on the table for a deal. And because it's like we said before too, a few weeks ago or last week of, all right, you take, you take a center at number 10 and that's your starting center. That's your answer right there. You're not going to do that, right? Like, that's not going to be your answer, at 10, your long-term answer.
We hope.
No, I know, but I'm saying like that's so I don't think. Yeah, no, I don't think it does.
I don't think so. I think there could be some. I think if they do make a trade and it's a desperate looking trade, I think making a trade could tell us a little bit more, because I said this even before the Kyrie Irving trade is the Mavericks may make a desperate trade here, because we started to see him get frustrated. The team was starting to be in a bad spot. I think they were still over 500 at that point, and then they fell out of it and fell out of the playoffs. And Jason Kidd wasn't concerned until the very end. But I think that will tell us more about Luka's frustration, how antsy and how, on the edge of the seat the team is about this whole situation. If they make some kind of trade where it's like, all right, the 10th pick for, win now player with
this is one of my answers for a question coming up
with like 1 year left on the deal. So coming up, let's talk about what you don't want the Mavericks to do with the 10th pick. A great question, and we'll answer that coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about eBay Motors. eBay Motors is the place to go when you need a part for your car. You can go check out, see what they have available. They have 122 million different parts. And for a championship team, it's all about making sure that every player is the perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors with eBay Guaranteed Fit. You can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage. Look for the green check to know that part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. With over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs. We appreciate each and every one of you, especially listening right now. Playoffs are going on. We're disappointed where the Mavericks are, and you guys are locked in. You're part of the Raccoon Squad if you listen every day. We appreciate each and every one of you. Again, subscribe to our subtext and help support the show. All right, Isaac, tell me what you don't want the Mavericks to do with the 10th pick. Let's say this is a question that we got in our subtext that I thought was really good. They have the 10th pick. Draft night comes. What don't you want them to do?
Make a desperate trade. And trade for, like, that's the thing. It's like, and what I mean by the desperate trade, don't trade for a Rudy Gobert or Brad Beal. Like that's the type of thing. Like that's the one that I just don't want them to do. Like I would almost rather them trade for a guy with one year left on their contract than
a Kyrie Irving type.
Yeah, I would almost rather that and say, hey, like we're giving up the 10th pick for a guy, and that's going to be really good for us, hopefully, but he only has 1 year left. Then committing $50 million to a Brad Beal or $40 million to Rudy Gobert, both locked in for the next 4 to 5 years. That's what I don't want them to do. I don't want them to feel like they're in a corner. They don't know how else to improve the team. They know, let's just say they know Kyrie Irving's coming back, or let's say they don't know on draft night. They really don't. They're not like 100% confident either way. And they're like, oh, man, you know what we got to do? We got to at least have some type of improvement. Let's go trade for Rudy Gobert. Like, yeah, right. That's the last. I would rather them sit there and take a super young rookie that's not going to be in the rotation this coming year instead of do $40 million for a guy.
You would rather do that than take a risk guy like that, just a player, even if you know that player's not going to play.
I would rather do that than locking you're taking away all of your options at that point by trading for a guy like roster options.
Rudy Gobert's a really good one. There's a guy that's 1 year in Pascal Siakam that we've talked about in the past. He has 1 year left on his deal.
I would do that.
And yeah, like I would much rather do that than a Gobert if those are the
it's
two.
It's the 10th pick. It's not the Brandon Miller or Scoot Henderson or even a Thompson brother. I think that's a whole different conversation. But even some of the guys at 10 some of the guys at 10 I like. I don't know if they're going to be like, if you took them, at 10, this June, that they're going to be getting 30 minutes for you in rotation. But like it's much different giving up that guy for Siakam compared to a Scooter Brandon Miller.
Would you look at Towns the same way as Gobert in that kind of scenario? Let's say they make that trade.
No, I think he's different. I just think Towns is going to go for more. I think somebody's going to look at Towns and be like, all right, you're a young star-ish in the league. I'm the
28.
worst person to ask about Towns. I don't have I'm lower on him than what I should be, and I know it. Like, I know I'm unfair low on him. I'm just not that big of a fan, but I could totally see another team trading for him and him being awesome. And I wouldn't I get it. Like,
are there any players in that 10 around that 10 spot that you're looking at? You say, I don't want them to take this player. Is there any that stand out to you? There's not really any to me.
Oh goodness.
That stand out right away as, all right, I just don't want that. You're looking at some pretty good players in that spot. I talked about some of them with Raphael recently on the show. So
it's because Dallas just needs so much. Like, we're like, all right, they can use a third ball handler. They can use a wing. They can use a big. I mean, I guess I would just lean towards, we already have Jaden Hardy. So like, I don't think like a Keontae George is that technically fits.
I think even KOC on the Ringer has shades of Jaden Hardy for Keontae Johnson or Keontae George. Sorry.
even the Smith kid out of Arkansas, like I would probably lean that route. Like not like I wouldn't go that route with a prospect. I think there's too many wings. I think there's a couple bigs around there. Let's see if somebody drops. Like I do think a Case and Wallace would be a lot of fun in Dallas as a third guard. But
this is not a question that I sent you, but who are your favorite ones that you're looking at right now in that 10 range that are standing out to you? To me, I was looking today and just Jarris Walker, Taylor Hendricks, Case and Wallace, all of them. Like Jarris Walker, defensive 4. He should be in like the 6 to 10 range, so right around there. Taylor Hendricks, an athletic like 3-and-D type player. Case and Wallace, this like hard-nosed like guard defender, point of attack defender. The Mavericks need all 3 of those things so badly. Like if any of those guys could come and defend really well early on, that would be so big for them. I also really like the Derek Lively guy. Raphael really talked me into him. The center that is like a rim roller, really good defensive center and all that. Like I'm into all 4 of those guys right now.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is like at this point, once Dallas locks in their 10th pick there coming up next week, we're gonna do draft profiles and and all of that. Or
be really sad.
I'm not even gonna talk about those options. But just off of like initial starting to put some like little profiles and stuff together. I obviously like Anthony Black a lot. I think, a lot of people like him for Dallas. I don't know if he'll fall to 10. But I'll tell you one that I do kind of like that would probably be a little bit of a surprise going at 10 is I think our version would say Rupert, but it's probably Rupert or, for the Breakers. I think he's a lot of fun. I think he's a lot of fun on defense. He's super young. He's 19. But yeah, I mean, just watching some of his stuff and the defensive potential that he has and his size, he's 6'8", 6'7", has like a 7'2", 7'4" wingspan somewhere through there.
Jeez.
I just think he's a lot of fun that I could see, like if he cracked the top 10 on draft night, it like wouldn't shock me.
Yeah. Another question here. Are there any thoughts to trading back, assume that we get the 10th pick and picking up additional picks next year or later? Is there any thought to moving back for the Mavericks this year?
No, 100%. I mean, I think that's the second most likely thing to happen outside of like, let's say lottery happens, they get the 10th overall pick. I think the third most likely thing to happen is them to actually take a player. I think the most likely thing for them is to trade the pick altogether for like a player out there and attach like some contracts, like a Tim Hardaway, Reggie Bullock, something like that, and go get like a solidified big or a solidified wing. I think that's the most likely. I think the second most likely option for them in the 10th pick is to do exactly what this person asked on subtext, is to move back and get a piece. We've talked about so many fake trades over the past 3 Wednesdays about if they land at 2 or if they land at 3. Next Wednesday we'll talk about if they land at 4. In those scenarios, and the same thing works for 10. You're just doing like lesser quality players probably of, hey, a team like Charlotte, giving up swapping Terry Rozier and Tim Hardaway to move up 4 spots, whatever it is, something like that. Looking at teams outside of 10 that like 12, 13, 14, that if a guy is sitting there at 10 that they really love, would they give up their pick in the teens with a rotation piece that would fit great in Dallas to move up 4 or 5 spots?
Let's say the Pacers give up the 26th or 29th pick and Miles Turner to move up to 10. Like I'm willing it into existence this year. I didn't do a good enough job last year. Looking at like Orlando, they're like 1 spot back from Dallas right there. But what if they really like a guy at 10? Would they attach just any type of piece, an Okiki, or they probably wouldn't do a Wendell Carter or something to move up 1 spot, give up the 11th pick? Like it's that type of stuff that I think Dallas could move back, pick up veterans, not just extra picks, but veterans, and still get a pick. Coming up, let's answer some rapid fire questions, including who should the Mavericks send to the draft lottery? It's a fascinating question. Talk about that coming up. All right, Isaac Harris, thanks everybody for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of the show, being an everydayer. If you're listening every day, part of the Raccoon Squad, we appreciate you. Got a couple of rapid fire questions here. These are all questions we got from subtext about the draft. What pick would you take Jarris Walker with? Thought this was an interesting. We talked about him a little bit. Raphael has him at 9 in his mock draft. The Ringer has him at 6 in their recent mock draft. So he's going right in that range. So right before the Mavericks take him at 10. So if the Mavericks are at 10, I think you take him, but you're not worried about him at 4. Those are the only options for the Mavericks is 10 and 4. So,
I was gonna say, yeah.
So you take him with 10. You would not take him with 4.
If he's there at 10, yes, yeah. Depending on the trades that's there.
Christian asked the question: who should the Mavericks send to the draft lottery that gives us the best possible vibes? If we drop in the lottery again, I'll know that we're cursed. that was his full question. I saw somebody recently put together on Twitter. You're gonna have to check the math on this one because I did not go and check all the math. The probability of the Dallas Mavericks in their like team history not moving up ever in their history, which is true, they've never moved up in the draft lottery, is 3%. If you go through all the possibilities and add them all up, it's 3%, which is the same percentage for them to jump up to 1, 2, 3, or 4. So if you have karma on your side, maybe there's draft lottery karma in that they'll get their 3% now. But who should they send? Who are the options? Let's start throwing out some names, and then we'll decide which one's the best one.
I know one person they're sending, but I'm not going to say it.
You know who they're sending?
Not the person in the seat, but I know. Anyway, options. Mavrello, number 1.
If it's Mavs, man, I swear to God.
They've been saving Mavrello for this moment.
They buried him back on. I think the options are Sid Marshall.
Who you can't send. You can't send Dirk. I can't.
No, don't do that to Dirk. Don't make him that. I think Sid Marshall, Nico Harrison, Jason Kidd. We've seen coaches in the past. Yeah. Michael Finley has done it in the past. A young player that's like still excited. Like maybe I don't think a Josh Green would, but a Jaden Hardy, get him all smiley up there in the spot. We've seen people do that before. He seems like he'd be up for it.
Would that increase somebody's trade value if you sent a young player that would tell people across the league, like, dude, he's one of our cornerstone pieces?
For the best vibes, maybe it's Theo Pinson.
No.
I don't think
he doesn't even have a contract.
He's not even under contract, so I don't.
Yeah, I think the betting favorite would be Nico Harrison. Outside of that, you're looking at Sent or Michael Finley.
Who gives us better vibes, Sent Marshall and Nico Harrison?
Well, you can't ever argue about the vibes of Sent Marshall. Like
ever.
She's got vibes for days. She's the best.
If she goes and they get like the number 1 pick, I mean, she gets
a statue next to Dirk.
Who's Dan Gilbert's kid with the bow tie that kept getting the number 1 pick? Like that.
The kid's been like 12 years old for like 20 years.
It's probably like out of college now.
I think if the Mavericks had like we're in that top 4 range, I think Sent would be the pick. But I think it's going to be Nico. Nico's my top choice.
Yeah.
Although I will say a lot of Chicago ties from Michael Finley. So if they send Finn up there.
Interesting. That's a good. Another question. Historically, the Mavericks have not drafted well, but Nico hasn't received his chance to shine. He hit on Hardy, but how much faith should we have in any draft pick he makes? I think this is fascinating. What kind of confidence do you have in Nico Harrison making a draft pick? Because we've really only seen him pick Hardy, and he traded for it.
I mean, I don't know how you really even answer this question because it's like he's only had 1 pick, so it's like I don't know how you can, and he doesn't have a history, so it's like how much
question.
I know, but it's like you can't really answer the questions. Like how much faith? I mean, it's so subjective. Like, okay, I mean, I guess I'll have a lot of faith because Dennis Lindsay will be there. Like it's another draft for him. But we also know that it's not just Nico making the choices. I mean, there's a lot of people in that room, right? I mean, we've talked about this.
Sometimes the analytics guy is just thrust into the position like at a moment's notice because the GM leaves the room. So who knows?
I mean, yeah, we know. We've talked about on this pod how crazy the draft room gets. I was texting with somebody, in the Josh Green draft that was there in the room, and just talking about how crazy it was getting there. So it's wild.
So I think this draft could answer some questions, but you really can't look at somebody's draft history and like make a decision on if they're a good drafter or not, even after like definitely after 1 pick, but even after like 1 or 2 drafts, because
I think you could like look at the Grizzlies right now and say you could have a lot of faith in that. Like
because we've seen them like 5 or 6 years make like really good picks.
I know, that's why I'm saying I think it's impossible when it's like a new guy to say how much faith you got this guy. I don't know. Like,
well, even
sure.
like Presti, do we look at Presti and say, okay, we know that this guy is really good at drafting because he picked Durant, Westbrook, and Harden, and then he's had a bunch of misses, you know,
Yeah.
like.
Well, I think it's not the Durant one, but like Russ's draft, I mean, he was kind of a surprise to go up as far as he did.
Yeah.
And even to take the chance on, you know, James Harden, Arizona State, like you do, like, yeah, I think he should get more credit than the Kevin Durant one. I get it. You walk into that one, but some of the other ones, even like the Serge Ibaka, all of that. Anyway, what's the next question?
What team would you want to see Victor Wembanyama go to, if not the Mavericks? Is it strategic,
That's
or
great.
where do you think he would work best?
I have one request: stay in the East.
You
Go the
scared?
East.
You really that scared about him?
I just don't want any more younger dudes in the West. Like, you know how annoying it would be? Like, you know how scary it is right now as a Mavs fan going into draft lottery? It's not just about keeping our pick. It's the fact that Wembanyama could go to San Antonio or Houston, and we got to see this dude all the time. Like, you know how annoying that's going to be? And like, I want to like root for the kid and all this stuff. And it's like, dude, you know how annoying Houston like can get? And sorry.
Personally, yeah, I don't want him to go to Houston. Sorry, Jackson Gatlin. Actually, Jackson Gatlin admitted he doesn't want him to go to Houston anymore either. He had some kind of crazy logic he was trying to explain on Locked On Rockets. But Spurs would be an interesting spot. But yeah, you don't have to play him that many times in a year. And if you look at the West, like to your point, there's already a ton of young talent in the West. You look at like the Grizzlies have Ja, he's young. Timberwolves have Anthony Edwards. Oklahoma City has SGA. Like you are Kings with De'Aaron Fox. You already have these teams with this young talent that's on the rise next. And so you see who's coming up behind you or coming up ahead of you after this season. But
I
you
personally
don't want to add one more team to that.
Charlotte would be kind of sad, but like the two teams that I'm kind of rooting for to get him is Detroit and Orlando.
Orlando would be wild.
To put him in Orlando with Paolo and Franz.
That's literally Thunder 2.0, right?
Yeah, it'd be a lot of fun. And even Detroit, putting him with Cade up in Detroit, like Jaden Ivey, that would be a lot of fun too. Form a young duo somewhere in the East. That's all I want. Portland, I will say in the West, Portland would be interesting to me. Just because like you got a Damian Lillard, like they're not Houston, San Antonio. I don't know, but then I'm afraid everybody try to do the Greg Oden thing, and that'd be sad.
I'm going to do a lottery sim. You ready for this?
Oh, I'm ready. Let's do it.
One sim. Okay, Mavericks got 10. They stay where they are. Portland moved up to number 1.
Oh,
that would be wild. They do have a good. They have a 10% chance. I mean, they have the 4th highest chance to be able to get Victor Wembanyama. What do you think
Dame
about that?
Go to the front office and say, "Go get me a superstar."
They said, we are. His name is Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah. Like, sorry, bud.
Orlando got 2, so they were right behind him. They were right behind him there.
How much
Scoot with them
Scoot?
would be great.
That'd be a lot of fun.
Houston moved down to 3.
Trade us Markel.
Houston moved down to 3, Detroit to 4, San Antonio to 5, Charlotte to 6, and then everything else is chalk.
San Antonio moving to 5 after this disaster of a season would be.
Well, Detroit to 4, moving down 3 spots.
Yeah, it'd be tough.
So there you go. Let us know in the comment section. What do you want the Mavericks to do with the 10th pick if they land there? We'll be back on Monday talking more about the Dallas Mavericks, talking about some more targets, talking about trades. We've got the draft lottery coming up. There's a lot of stuff to be excited about. So, guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom.